Hello everybody, it's nice to see you again. I hope that you're well. There's a gentleman with the tractor mower is busy in the fields again today, so you may hear the drone of an engine as it draws closer to the bolt hole, but fingers crossed it won't disturb us. I hope that you're all well anyway. It's nice to be back again. I've been very busy since I last saw you, busy writing really. I've been travelling a certain amount, but mostly focusing on my writing projects at the moment, and I've got quite a lot on. I've finished Sea of Whispers. That's done, that's dusted, that's copy edited, and that's coming out next January. But I'm focusing now on a 4-book project. It's a series of standalone stories. So each one is a separate story, but each one will focus on a different teenager. And unusually for me, I've actually got the 4 story ideas pretty clear in my head, and I'm just getting to the end of the first of these books in rough draft form, so I'm hoping to have something to show my editor in the next few weeks, which is quite exciting really. So I've been working very hard on those. Also been working on the next novel, which is quietly ticking away in the background, so it's quite a lot that I've been enjoying myself with lately. Thank you very much for recent emails, lovely emails. And first of all, Charlotte. Now Charlotte, you're an incredibly special person. You're year 7. You're from Nigeria. I happen to know that because your teacher, Miss Campbell, has written to me about you. So I know you're from Nigeria, but you're actually living in Sevenoaks, aren't you? And boarding at the school there. And last month, I had a whole pile of emails again from Sevenoaks School, which I so enjoy getting. But you wrote yours a little bit later, didn't you? For various reasons, you were a bit behind the others. But I'll tell you what, Charlotte, boy was this email worth waiting for, because it's really great. Now, your teacher, Miss Campbell, said to me in her email, she said, oh, Charlotte's written to you separately, and she said that she's a very creative, imaginative girl. Well, to be honest with you, Charlotte, I didn't need to be told that, because it's obvious from this email how creative and imaginative you actually are. And it's just beautiful, the way you've written this. You've obviously spent a lot of time crafting your words, saying things just right. So thank you very much for writing. Now, you enjoyed Stormcatchers, didn't you? That's great. Loads of questions, like as with all the other people in your class. You say you found it moving and a little bit scary, which is great to hear. Then you say, how did you come up with such a fascinating ending from what you started with? It's a mystery, isn't it, Charlotte? I know there are writers who kind of work it all out beforehand and they plan things, but I'm not like that. I simply started with the tapping noise. I had no idea where it was going. I couldn't even think about the ending of chapter 1, never mind the ending of the whole book. What I find, Charlotte, is that as I work my way through sentence by sentence, paragraph by paragraph, gradually the unwritten part of the story starts to unfold, starts to reveal itself to me. Not necessarily as a definite route, but maybe a set of possibilities of where the story might want to go. When I get to that point, it seems to nudge me, okay, I can go this way or I can go this way. It wants to go this way, okay, so we try that. And that's how I feel my way through my first draft of the story. And eventually I get to the ending. And that's how it works for me, Charlotte. So when I started writing in chapter 1, I had no idea about the ending. None at all. So yes, I'm glad you found it a fascinating ending. But I don't know how it came. It just came gradually. At some point the ending revealed itself. I got a sense of where the story wanted to go. You had lots of other questions which have kind of been answered already by some of the people who wrote to me from your school before. So what you might want to do here, Charlotte, is have a look at some of the last couple of bulletins where I've answered questions from Sevenoaks pupils. You'll find that a lot of the questions you've got in your email I've been asked by them and I've already answered. So check that out already. Check that out yourself and see if you get an answer to some of your questions. Then you say here, you say a very interesting point about the ending. You say, I never understood why they had to give Ella time. Time for what, you say? That's a very interesting question. But you know what, Charlotte? I think you can work it out for yourself. Why did they have to give Ella time? Why does Finn say that? Time for what? Just pretend for a moment that you are Ella. Charlotte, pretend that you're at the end of the story, the end of that story, the bit with the lighthouse, and you've been through all the things that Ella has been through. If you were Ella, would you be able to then walk home and say, okay, I'm going to get on with my life? I'm not sure. If I were Ella, I know I couldn't. So I wonder what they mean by that. What does Finn mean when he says, we've got to give Ella time? Time for what? I think you kind of know, really. If you empathise with Ella, Charlotte, I think you'll know what that bit's about. Okay? But it's an interesting question. I'm glad you asked it, and nobody else asked that one, certainly. And finally, you have got a very interesting point. You've got an alternative ending. Now, you say you like the ending, so that's okay. I'm relieved to hear you like the ending. But you came up with an interesting alternative. I'm not going to tell people about that. I'm just going to say you've got an interesting ending, an interesting alternative ending to do with the lighthouse. And I think it's rather clever. I still think I prefer the one I've got, actually, if I'm honest with you, Charlotte. But I love the fact that you thought so hard about it and you came up with an alternative. So thank you for that too. Honestly, it's lovely to hear from you. And thank you so much for writing to me. Would you give my best wishes to everybody in your class and to the amazing Miss Campbell. And thank you so much again, Charlotte, for writing this lovely email to me. It's really, really lovely to hear from you. Thank you. Now, talking of unbelievably special Year 7 pupils, this is another one called Eve. Now, Eve, you're nothing to do with Sevenoaks. You're from Leicester, aren't you? And you wrote me this beautiful, beautiful email saying, "Hi Tim, I am a Year 7 student and we are reading your book, Stormcatchers." Good old Stormcatchers. Stormcatchers in class, and we all love it and we think you're an amazing writer. Well, thank you very much indeed. Then you say, "My English teacher, Mrs. Armston, loves you and is always stopping us reading to talk about how good your writing is." Well, Mrs. Armstrong, thank you very much for that. Then you said, this is the lovely bit, Eve, I think you're fantastic here. You say, "We were wondering if you would consider coming to our school to meet our teacher. It's her birthday soon and it will be such a good surprise for her." Well, we then had some correspondence, didn't we, Eve, you and I, in secret, without telling Mrs. Armston. And as you know, I can't actually make it to your school, but I did send you a card to give to Mrs. Armston. So I'm assuming that you and Mrs. Armston and the class are watching this. If you've got my email, you should be. And so all I want to say is, firstly, Mrs. Armston, thank you for liking my book so much. Thank you for showing it to your class. Thank you for telling them how much you love it and stopping every 5 minutes to comment on it. But most of all, Eve, you are amazing. Honestly, you really are. Thank you for being so kind to think about your teacher and to write to me about it. I just think you're pretty special. So my best wishes to you, Eve, to everyone in the class, to Mrs. Armstrong, and I'm delighted that you all like Stormcatchers. Bless your heart. Thank you. Now, who have we got next? Now, this is not a Year 7 pupil. This is my dear old friend. I keep on calling that Dennis, don't I? My dear friend. For those of you who don't know Dennis, he's not really that old, but he's a tiny, tiny bit younger than me, I think. Anyway, Dennis, you're not a spring chicken anymore, are you? And you're from Seattle, and I know you're a poet, and you perform a lot of your work at an open mic. Thank you. It's lovely to receive your latest email. Quick thing from me, Dennis. I hope that health is okay. I know from your recent correspondence that you've had a couple of things to think about, and I hope that you're okay there. Just want to pick up one thing that you mentioned here. You talk about the recent performance that you were doing in Duval in Washington, where you were the featured poet. You said that the audience was very responsive and that the half hour went very well. That was great to hear. You say, "I spent hours crafting the words, the order, the nuances of my voice to be as authentic as possible. Still working on putting together a poetry book, but it needs more work. I keep hearing more poets," you say, "at the open mic, and I realise that though my poetry has come far in the last few years, it still has a long way to go." But Dennis, that's the point, isn't it, I think? You talk about it as though that's something to be resolved, but as far as I'm concerned, all our writing at any stage in our life has a long way to go, doesn't it? It's already travelled a long way, especially those of us, like the two of us, who've been writing all our lives. So it's already travelled a long way, but whatever stage in your writing life you are at, your writing has an infinite distance to travel. It doesn't, as I see it, you may think differently, Dennis, but as I see it, it doesn't really matter what the other poets are doing. Celebrate them. Celebrate them. But then focus on your own stuff. It doesn't matter what other people have got on their plate. Isn't it? In a sense, it's irrelevant to you because they can't write your poetry and you can't write theirs. And nor should you try, of course. I'm not lecturing you for one moment, Dennis, you know that. But it just seems to me that what you describe is a positive thing rather than in any way a negative thing. In this business, in this writing business, nobody ever really arrives. No matter how good you are, even Shakespeare, when he died at the age of 52, you could say if anyone arrived, Shakespeare did. And yes, there are poems and pieces of Shakespeare where you can look at them and think, my God, that's perfect, that's unimprovable. But even he would have had an infinite distance to travel had he been able to live long enough. And so I think the distance ahead of us is a precious thing. And yeah, a long way to go, you say. But our writing always has a long way to go. And I think the fact that you recognise that is what matters. The fact that you recognise the potential your writing has for further growth is the most positive thing you can say about your work. The fact that you are aching to improve and wanting to improve and aware of what you can do and where you can go and how far you can go. To me, that's a good thing, a very good thing. And it's great that you're surrounded by great poets, other poets. What a fantastic situation to be in. So celebrate them, but celebrate your own work, celebrate your own achievement, and celebrate the distance you've still got to go and how much joy there is potentially in the journey ahead, I think. And I wish you well anyway, Dennis. You know, you are a lovely man, and I so enjoy reading what you have to say in your many emails to me. And as I said earlier, I do hope that health is okay. And anyway, my best wishes to you as always. And who have we got now? Maureen, another person who I'm going to say, you're not at school anymore, Maureen, are you? You wrote to me, first of all, back in 2009, Maureen, and you kindly told me then that you were 48, so I suppose I can reveal to the internet that you're now in your early 50s. But anyway, it's lovely to hear from you again. And just in your case, Maureen, you're another one of those great examples of people I have nothing but admiration for. You mentioned in your first email to me, and you repeat it this time around, that, you know, about your family. You have this huge family, grandchildren, kids. You're really, really busy with your family life. But somehow or other you find time to write. And in your most recent email, you say to me, you make reference to the email you previously sent, and then you say, my own writing is slow but steady. I will persevere until I finish. What a great attitude. Then you say, unfortunately, full-time work, family life, and 5 grandchildren. You're not very busy, are you, really, Maureen? And 5 grandchildren to entertain leaves me with very few pockets of clear thought. However, I do treasure those few special moments to get immersed in my world. And you've underlined my world. And in brackets you say, you know what I mean. Maureen, I know what you mean. I really do. My world. It's not selfish at all to be able to focus on that. And there's someone like you, an unbelievably unselfish person with all of these commitments which you lovingly give yourself to. And then you say, you try to get immersed occasionally in my world. And I think that's terribly important for those of us who love writing. Whatever we do in our lives, however many commitments we have, of course we have to find time for the world of everybody else. The world in general, the bigger world. But there's also a second world. That's what you call my world, your world, the world that belongs to you alone. That's the world you carry in your heart, isn't it? And I think if we neglect that, then we're impoverished as a result. And it's not a selfishness to devote some time to that. So I admire what you're doing enormously, Maureen, the fact that you're so busy and yet you find time for that, your own world, that special world you carry inside you. And I hope you'll continue to find time for that world so that you can focus on your writing, which I know is really important to you. So my best wishes to you, as always, Maureen, and you keep on doing what you're doing. I think you're amazing. Who have we got now? Cameron, dear Tim, are there any writing pitfalls to avoid? Well, I don't know, Cameron, probably a few hundred, but I suppose, well, vanity is one. I mean, I'm not saying you suffer from it, you don't sound like you do at all, but certainly vanity, you know. I mean, keep your ego out of the way, keep your ego out of the story if you can. The kind of writing, when I read it, that I can't stand, is writing that where the author is so pleased with their own cleverness. And I think you've lost it when that's the case. You compare that to the attitude Dennis has got, or Maureen has got, when Dennis was talking a moment ago and a couple of emails back, you know, about being aware of the distance still to travel in his work. That's the attitude to have, isn't it? That's writing without ego. That's getting yourself out of the way. Your stories and your poetry can only get better if you do that. I'm not saying that you don't reveal yourself through your writing. Of course you do. You can't help but do that. So in a sense, you know, aspects of your ego, yourself, your nature will come through your writing. Of course they will. But what I'm saying is this kind of writing where you're constantly getting in the way of the story. And I have read some modern writers recently. I've been so put off by the manner of the storytelling, where there's a sense of showing off. The writer's showing off. To me, that's an awful vanity. And the best writing, to me, though it massively reveals the nature of the writer, it doesn't get in the way. It simply enhances and adds to the nature of what you're reading. So yeah, vanity would be one thing. Any other pitfalls? Well, I guess laziness. You could do without those two. We could probably make a long list, Cameron, but if you can keep vanity and laziness out of the way, then I think your writing's going to be better for it, isn't it? You know. Thank you. My final email today is from somebody very, very special. This is Rosemary. Rosemary, you are a very special person indeed. And I just want to say to you, keep going. That's all. I know you very well, and you're, Rosemary, I think you're going into a period of your life where you're going to burst out into something wonderful. You're just going into your 30s, and that's a very interesting time, because I think I was the same when I was your age, exactly the same. I had a lot of life experience. I wasn't a boy anymore, I wasn't a kid, but my writing voice, and I've been writing just like you since I was tiny, but my writing voice wasn't ready to match the aspirations I had in my head and in my heart. In other words, I hadn't found the kind of writing vocabulary to clothe my inner life. And that's what writing is. That's what art is in a way, Rosemary, I think. You know, our inner life is a formless thing. Our thoughts and our feelings, they don't have form. But when you put down words, you create raiment for your inner life. You clothe your inner life. But it's about finding the right words to do that. And when you enter your 30s, that's when all that potential starts to, I suppose, become visible, in a sense. And I think you're at the stage where you're going to write your best stuff, and I think it's really starting now. What you did last year and the year before and the year before that, what you did during those school years, your education, your previous life, all of that will feed into the woman you are now and the writer that you are now. But those things, those successes and those failures don't count. They don't count. What counts is who and what you are now, what you do today, what you do tomorrow. I know that you're about to embark on an online creative writing course. That sounds really interesting. But more important than that, Rosemary, is what you write for yourself. That's the writing that counts. And this applies to anybody, not just you, Rosemary, anybody else listening. You're going to go into the period now, I think, where you start to write the work which is going to define you. And I believe this is the time where you'll grow and you'll discover yourself as a writer. And I just want to wish you well with that and encourage you to be patient as you can, because writing, I think, is slow theatre. It's like nature. Nature doesn't grow quickly. Nature grows slowly. And this is slow theatre. Writing is slow theatre. The development of a gift is like a flower slowly growing. But you have to work it. To mix a metaphor in it's like a muscle. I'm putting a new metaphor in here, sorry about that. You have to work your writing muscle, you know, regularly, so it gets strong. So it's just, I suppose that's it really, Rosemary. I just want to encourage you to be as patient as you can and to believe in yourself. And forget about what happened last year or the year before or all your previous life. It doesn't matter. What matters is the writing you do today, the writing you do tomorrow, the writing you do for the rest of your life. As I was saying earlier in this bulletin, think of that distance to travel. It's an infinite distance. You're not going to arrive. I'm not going to arrive. None of us are going to arrive. But the journey is the bit that matters. That's the bit that counts. So, Rosemary, you know, that's really what I wanted to say. You have something terribly precious inside you. Everybody does. How we express that precious thing is up to us. Everyone has a different way of doing so. And writing is one of the ways that you want to express your precious uniqueness. And I hope you'll carry on doing it and believing in yourself. I'm reminded of something the composer Delius said. He struck, if you like, he struck his ridge vein in his late 30s and early 40s. And he said, it took me many, many years to discover what I wanted to say. But when I discovered it, it came all at once. Isn't that nice? Well, I hope that something similar happens to you, and I'm quite sure it will. In my own case, when I was your age, like you, I'd had all this life experience behind me, I was writing. I got to the age of 30, 31, 32. Was I writing something that was anywhere near publication? Nowhere near. Nothing remotely good enough. Full of promise, perhaps, and other bits which were rubbish. So good bits, bad bits. Was it the real thing? It wasn't anything like the real thing. But it does come if you stay with it and if you don't give up and you keep writing. So Rosemary, you keep going. You're a very special person and you have really special things to say. So you carry on saying them and sooner or later you'll strike gold. I know it. Anyway, take care of yourself. And to everybody watching, my best wishes to all of you, whether you're writers, readers or whoever you may be. My best wishes to you, and I'll speak to you again very soon. Bye-bye.